Ladies and gentlemen of the press, thank you so very much for responding to the invitation of the Houston branch of the NAACP to cover this very important press conference. And we appreciate the fact that we have a plethora of leaders who are here standing in support of our response to the unjust verdict in the shooting case, the murder case of Pamela Turner by Officer De La Cruz of the Baytown Police Department. My name is Dr. James Dixon. I'm humbled to serve as your president of the Houston branch of the NAACP on behalf of our members and on behalf of our city and our constituents. I do want to recognize several persons who are here this morning. Charlie Jones, thank you for being here, always standing as well. Miss Cynthia Cole, who's representing ASME 1550, as well as representing our friend from LULAC, Johnny Mata, as well Ms. Julie Wilkes from ASME as well. Erica Foster, who's here from the Office of Commissioner Rodney Ellis, Harris County Commissioner Rodney Ellis, who could not be here but sent her as his representative. We're also grateful to have with us Booker Morris, representing Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who is seeking to get her here herself as well. And we've got representation from Congressman Al Green with us today. We're grateful to have with us our State Representative Ronald Reynolds, who is the chairman of the Texas Black Caucus. We're honored to have him with us here today as well. And members of the NAACP Executive Committee, Nicholas Little, Pamela Bovelin, and Roger Harris are here as well. Did I leave anyone out? I think I've got Eugene Howard is here from Missouri City. We appreciate him always on the battlefield and with the NAACP of Missouri City. Let me say that today in Harris County, the Houston NAACP and supporters must announce once again the failure of our judicial system to render a fair and just verdict in the fatal shooting of another person of color by an irresponsible police officer. In this case, an unarmed black woman, Pamela Turner, who was shot and killed by Baytown officer Juan De La Cruz. This tragic incident happened in Baytown, and it happened in such a heinous way that all who viewed the video knows clearly, the public could see it, that Pamela Turner on the ground, unarmed, begging for her life, shot at 5 times, hit fatally 3 times, should still be alive today, were it not for the irresponsible actions of unnecessary violence perpetrated by Officer De La Cruz. That shooting death was tragic enough. But to add further to this injustice is the outcome of the trial which occurred on yesterday, where the shooter in this incident was declared innocent. This verdict is simply inhumane. Clearly, to observers in the courtroom, the district attorney faced several stop signs that were erected by the judge. Let me say that again. In this case, the judge erected stop signs so that the district attorney was not able to present vital evidence that would have supported the innocence of Pamela Turner and the guilt of Officer De La Cruz. For example, the jury did not hear information that De La Cruz knew Pamela Turner prior to this incident. That was not admissible. Pamela Turner's health condition was not admissible. The fact that Officer De La Cruz had contacted Pamela Turner's family before the incident, these are vital factors that were not allowed to be admitted by the judge. These and other stop signs rendered the jury void of vital information. This is a travesty of justice that we should not and will not accept. This is tragedy upon tragedy. An unarmed black woman on her back, begging for her life, when an officer standing a safe distance from her, firing 5 shots, hitting her in 3 different places, ending and taking her life. When you think about that, a woman begging on the ground, unarmed, African American, dead. Here again in America, we have to report that this would have been the first case where there was a guilty verdict on behalf of a black woman shot and killed by police in the history of our nation. And Harris County failed. Harris County failed. And so today, with righteous outrage, we have gathered here on the steps of the branch of the NAACP with friends and supporters, partners in the fight for justice, to say that the question still rings loud. When will we ever see justice? And here's what we know for sure. If that had been a police officer on the ground begging for his life, unarmed, and a black woman or a black man or a brown woman or a brown man standing over that police officer or a white man has shot 5 times, killing an unarmed police officer, we already know that the verdict would have been a verdict of guilty. And we're saying until we get just verdicts where rogue police officers shoot and kill unarmed people, there will be no justice in America and no justice in Harris County. Today, we're saying, when will black lives and the lives of black women in particular ever matter? We pray that all of Harris County citizens respond to this unjust verdict with righteous outrage. That is our statement officially from the Houston NAACP. At this time, I'm going to ask Chairman Reynolds to have a comment as he wishes.
President Bishop Dixon, my heart is heavy today. I echo the sentiments that you articulated very eloquently. As a father of 2 black girls, my heart goes out to that family of Pamela Turner. That killing was unjust. And you described that it never should have happened in the first place, but to add insult to injury for the officer to be acquitted and found not guilty is a travesty of justice. You know, I think about, as I stand here at the Houston NAACP, I think about words from Dr. King where he said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Everywhere.
What happened in Harris County is a threat to justice all over America. And this should be an outcry. And I'm so proud that the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, where I serve as the chair, is behind you in the Houston NAACP, behind all of these community leaders, and speaking out against this injustice. And we pray that this will not fall into a 1 or 24-hour news cycle. We can't let this die with the next issue that comes up, because inevitably there's going to be another issue, another shooting, another this or another that. We're going to have to continue to follow this to make sure that it doesn't keep happening over and over and over and over until we're numb, until we stop speaking out. It's going to continue to happen. And so we're here today to demand that this doesn't get swept away, this doesn't go away. I'm hoping that there could be a federal inquiry, that the Justice Department may come in and look at this. I'm hoping that there will inevitably be justice for the family, and to send a message to others that may be thinking about perpetuating similar crimes, that you will not be able to escape being prosecuted and found guilty, because this sends the wrong message. This does send the message that black lives don't matter. That's what this sends. This message of a not guilty verdict, when we all saw the video, we all know what happened. And to see the outcome, you're right, Bishop, I have no doubt in my mind that if the roles were different, that it would be a total different outcome. And we're simply saying that black lives do matter. Black lives matter.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean other lives don't matter, but we're sick and tired of being sick and tired of having another hashtag, another incident where we see this all too often. And we're not talking about the 1950s and the 1960s and the Jim Crow era. We're talking about in 2021 and 2022. These are modern day lynchings, modern day lynchings. They're not going to trees and hanging anymore. They're doing it with bullets from their guns. And so I'm here today to stand in solidarity with you, and we will continue to demand justice until we see a just outcome. And right now, what we saw from yesterday, this was a complete travesty. Anyone with a moral conscience, they should be outraged, and they should be joining us in our fight for justice. So thank you, Houston NAACP. Thank you for all these freedom fighters that are standing in solidarity. We will not let this death be in vain. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Reynolds. Cynthia Cole, ask me.
Thank you, NAACP, Bishop, and all of the executive board that's here. My name is Cynthia Cole. I'm the executive director for AFSCME, but I also sit on the board of the Greater Houston Coalition for Justice. I am a black female. I don't want to be stopped by the officers that say that they are here to be civil servants to protect me from danger. Pamela Turner didn't have an option while she was begging for her life. She didn't even have to reflect on whether or not she was an African-American female. She just is reflecting as a human being that she is about to die. The message? Interesting. Malcolm X once stated that the African-American female is the most unprotected, disrespected women group in this nation. Does this not seem to be true? I recognize that there is a process, but I get this message. And the message that I get is this. This judicial system has said to me, don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe what you saw. Believe what we're going to tell you falls within the lines of justice. And I say to that, absolutely not. So I'm not here in front of you all to give you a sermon or some words or give you something to get inspired about. I am here to say to every single woman, especially African American and my sisters that are brown and from other ethnicities, you better pay attention. You better pay attention. This is a call to action. We ought to flood the streets. We ought to say no more, no thank you. Respect who I am, what I am. My life is important. I am not just some number or some digit. And when evil rolls up on you like this officer, be prepared to see what the outcome will be. The fight ain't over till it's over. So the fight is still going on.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for those poignant and passionate words. I'm sure you could hear our pain expressed in those comments as well. I'm going to ask Eugene, would you come and speak on behalf of the Missouri City contingency of freedom fighters, please?
Thank you, Bishop Dixon, President Dixon. Thank you, Representative Reynolds, to all these other great freedom fighters that we have here standing today. Unfortunately, the plight of the African American in this country is duly noted that we do not get the equal treatment, the equal justice, the equal equity that we deserve, that we're afforded by this great country. Pamela Turner was begging for her life. Again, begging for her life. We see so many times that we must have moral character. We must understand the climate of the country. What was going on at that time, even though the country wanted to make it seem like it was a Donald Trump thing, we as Black Americans have known we've been being assassinated in the streets as long as we've been walking in the streets.
Right.
So this isn't a new day, America. It's just a repeat offense. So instead of looking at us and saying, what can we do different? I'm putting the plight to those allies, To those people that know, just like in the George Floyd situation, Pamela Turner's name's just important. What happened to her was just as egregious.
Right.
We must stand up and we must not be quiet. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. I recognize Congressman Green. Earlier, I do want to recognize, of course, Clarence Doc Holliday, who's a former president of the Missouri City chapter NAACP, standing with us on the day as well. I want to bring Reverend Angela Raven, who's going to talk. She is the Social Justice Director at the Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church, and she's the Vice Chair of the Social Justice Social Action Committee of the Houston Metropolitan Baptist Ministers Conference to say a word. Before she comes, I want to say, again, we appreciate Senator Boris Miles, who sends his support for this press conference as well, and a plethora of others who could not be here physically, but the army behind this is great and growing.
Thank you, President Dixon. I just want to say our scriptures, our holy text, encourage us to take care of those who are most vulnerable in our society. And Ms. Turner represents the intersection of those situations, those realities, being female, being African American, and being a person with a mental illness. And unfortunately, we have not served her justice in Harris County. Yeah. We have not protected her. We have not done what is necessary to make sure that she would be kept safe. We are not saying that she could be exonerated or live outside of the law, but because of her condition, because of her circumstance, her situation deserved a special type of treatment, one with compassion and one with mercy, one in which the system has things in place to make sure that people with mental illness can be handled appropriately. However, Mr. De La Cruz chose to ignore that. He chose to act on his own, out of his own passions, out of his own anger, and chose to treat her with complete devaluing and disrespect. And time is out for our women to be treated disrespectfully. It is time that we value every individual in this country. It is time that every individual is cared for with compassion, with justice, and with mercy.
Thank you so very much. One final comment, and then we will close. I have a question from the press. It's Holiday.
Hello, everyone. I'm Clarence Holliday. I'm a former president of the Missouri City NAACP, and I currently work for Congressman Al Green. I do want to make one short statement that I hope people will know that we are very much in support. We are very much in support of the police. What we're not in support of is indiscriminately shootings and killings that policemen too often do to African Americans and people of color. As a man of 74 years old next month, I'm still afraid of being stopped by the policeman late at night, thinking that something might happen to me and I may not get home. Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, everyone, for attending this press conference.
Thank you. Again, I want to recognize the members of our executive committee who are here. Thank each of them for being with us and standing on behalf of the NAACP today. We will not stop here. We understand that this cannot simply be a press event and then we go back to business as usual. Right, Bishop. I said we cannot and we will not go back to business as usual. The NAACP, along with our collaborative organizations, will be working on doing things publicly in Baytown. Because as we speak, there is a police officer with a gun and a badge with this mindset on the streets of Baytown. Let me say that again. There is today on the streets of Baytown a badge-wearing, gun-carrying police officer on the streets with this mentality that has been told by this verdict, just like you did it once, you can do it again. Right. We cannot allow the public to act as though this is not the case.
That's right.
When we know that there are wanted perpetrators of violence on the streets, Crime Stoppers puts out a big notice. We raise up billboards. We create signs. Find the perpetrator. Call this number.
That's right.
We're saying Officer De La Cruz is on the streets.
Well,
People need to know that this mindset is still at large in our community. And so we're going to plan to bring women to Baytown to march and to protest and to say the lives of black women do matter.
That's right. That's right.
The lives of brown women do matter.
Yeah.
The lives of black children do matter. All lives matter.
That's right.
And everyone carrying a gun and wearing a badge should then know that they're there to protect and respect all lives equally.
That's right.
Until then, there will be no justice anywhere until there's justice everywhere.
That's right.
Thank you so much for being here. Are there any questions from the media?
You mentioned it about perhaps trying to get the federal government involved. Are y'all going to perhaps craft an official proposal or call for the Justice Department to get involved?
Yes, we will. We're calling for the Justice Department to investigate this case and do whatever that's in their purview.
That's right.
To examine and evaluate this case. We're going to ask law students, law schools, to examine and evaluate this case, render an academic opinion. We want the Justice Department to render a legal opinion. We need all eyes to study this case because this is historic. This says that in 2023, a black woman unarmed on the ground with her hands shown, visible, can be shot at 5 times, hit 3 times, and killed, and the police officer gets off acquitted as not guilty. That says something about a sickness within our total community and society that we've got to address on a number of levels.
What do you say to the people that's at home who just still don't quite get it? You know, they say this was heard by a jury of our peers, and they just still don't quite get it.
Well, it's very important. This is why this has to be studied and proved academically. Because when you look at the case, I talked about the stop signs that were put up in this trial by the judge with evidence that was inadmissible, information that the jury was never allowed to hear. The case was botched. The DA was not able to put its best on record. And that is a travesty. That's a tragedy. Again, flip the coin over. If this had been a police officer begging for his or her life, being shot by a civilian, we doubt seriously if those same stop signs would have been there. Right. And so we've got to really examine this case on its merit and understand where the deficiencies and the faults lie in this case so that it doesn't continue to happen.
I know they spoke yesterday, but they just talked
But obviously, what big of a blow this is to Pamela's family. I mean, this is horrible. This has been a long time coming, trying to see this process. We've been at the other protests down in Baytown. This is years going on. Talk about, from your understanding, just kind of where they are right now.
The family is broken. The family is broken. Her daughter, broken. Grandkids, broken. When you think about the fact that, as you mentioned, since 2019, they've been hoping and praying that at least the system would honor the life of their loved one. And what this verdict says to them, my mother's life didn't matter.
That's right.
My grandmother's life did not matter. My sister's life did not matter to Harris County, did not matter to the Baytown Police Department. And we're hoping that what we're seeking to do says to them, but your mother's life does matter to us. Your mother's life does matter to God. And that's why we can't quit. Because those individuals deserve to know that tomorrow, people with moral judgment, the life of their loved one actually still matters to us as well. This is a travesty we can't even imagine what a daughter must be thinking. My mother was shot down that way. That's the way my granddaughter lost her grandmother in that kind of crime. So yes, they're broken. Please pray for those for their family because they're broken and disturbed at a level we cannot understand.
My question is, I know the family is appealing.
Where do we stand right now with that appeal process and moving forward?
Would you say it again?
With the appeal process of the decision.
Yes, the lawyers are contemplating that for sure. We're in touch with Attorney Ben Crump, talking with him on last night, every means available are going to be exploited to the very nth degree to see that we can get justice in this case. So I'm sure you'll be hearing more about the pill option as well.
And the last question for me, this is kind of a totality type question.
My God.
Choose very carefully. But what can we do as a whole and going forward to change the narrative for people of color? It seems as if it's automatically swayed to one side of, well, if somebody felt in fear, well, they're reaching for a taser, whereas whatever. Perhaps if you look at some other cases, that may not always be the case across the board. It seems like that's the automatic default. So where do we go to start trying to deconstruct this narrative in some people's eyes that black and brown people are automatic danger and threat? They automatically gonna kill you, so I'm gonna open fire. How do we even, is it starting to get guilty verdicts? Like, how do we start changing that shift?
It definitely starts with getting guilty verdicts. There's got to be a consequence.
That's right.
At some point, there's got to be legal consequences for those who perpetrate these kind of crimes. But until there are legal consequences, there's got to be public image consequences. That's why we got to go down to Baytown. That's why we got to make our voices heard, and that's why we cannot be silent. We got to be visible and verbal and vigilant until we are upset enough to make people uncomfortable. They will commit these crimes comfortably, and that we cannot allow.
And if I could just add something quickly to that, just like what Eugene referenced, what really was the catalyst from the civil rights movement was when John Lewis and others were beaten across the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Yes.
And that was on full display. People of good conscience, not just black people, but white clergy.
All people, yes.
There were it was a culmination of, hey, this is not right in America. We should be ashamed. So it appealed to the social consciousness. So until this isn't just a black issue or a black and brown issue, but until the evangelicals come to the table and say, hey, this is wrong, but they double down. And then they until you stop coddling the white nationalists and white supremacists, where let's be honest, under the Donald Trump MAGA movement, it's more prevalent now. So in many regards, we're going backwards. Where we thought we were making progress, when people asked the question after the election of Barack Obama, are we living in a post-racial America? In many sentiments, it brought out the Tea Party. So it's bringing out the worst in some people. So you're seeing more anti-immigrant rhetoric, more anti-black rhetoric. So until people of good conscience speak out, and it's not just a black and brown people speaking out, until all people of good conscience speak truth to power, this is going to continue to happen. You get guilty verdicts. You get people of good moral character in the white evangelical faith saying this is wrong, and we're going to denounce it. We stand with our brothers in the movement, Black Lives Matter are thereafter, and saying this is wrong, and we all stand in solidarity. It's going to continue to happen because they're saying this is a them issue. Not this is an American issue. Yes. This is not us. When 9/11 came, it was a us issue against the terrorists. But this is domestic terrorism, and they don't want to address that. That is the ugly truth about this country, is that they don't want to address those systemic issues that perpetuate the mindset. They want to embrace it. And unfortunately, we see it with critical race theory. They don't want you teaching about it. So instead of addressing it, they don't want you to speak about it. And then they legislate it. And then they don't want you voting, and then they enact voter suppression laws. So it all is interconnected. And until we come together as a country to accept the fact that racism is still alive and we're not playing, quote, the race card, those disparities within our criminal justice system are real. You can look at it. Black people are over incarcerated on the same issues. White people are acquitted for same things that a black person did. That's what they call jury nullification. So we have to be real about it, and it's going to take white America coming together. Look at here. There was people that could have joined us today to send a message that we're all in this together, but they're not here.
In fact, they could have called a press conference. They could have called a press conference. When we do send out notices, we don't get responses. The reality is, it's still us and them, and healing takes place when people of common values stand together against injustice. Not because we agree with each other on everything, but we agree with each other on the fundamental things. And that is, every human life is sacred and should be protected and respected as such. regardless of political party,
That's right.
ethnicity,
That's right.
or economic class, or educational class. We should be a human family, one future. And you've never seen, to this day in the city of Houston, a blatant injustice committed against an African American or Hispanic American, and the white evangelical community comes out first to say, we're standing against that injustice.
Wow.
You've never seen it.
Wow.
And I tell people, just count the faces you don't see, consider the voices you don't hear, and you'll know where the problem lies.
My last question is the DA. Has the DA reached out to the office? What has the DA said?
We are in conversation. In fact, I've got a call while standing here that I'm going to be returning shortly to talk about that. I'm sure they're quite disappointed in some things that happened as well. So I'm not at liberty to speak to that. They have to answer that question for themselves. But listen, they are aware that this was an unjust verdict. Plainly and simply, this case should have been closed fast. Unarmed woman on the ground, whom the officer knew to be mentally ill, did not provide the ample services for her, hunted her down at night, stalked her. She's on the ground begging for her life. He shoots at her 5 times and shoots her 3 times and kills her. And he's at a safe distance where she is no threat to him whatsoever. That is called murder in every other case. Thank you very much.
Good job, Bishop.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.